last year I was up here receiving the award, and I was a lot more nervous and actually less excited than actually being here today, because I can't tell you how much it means to me to be able to give these both awards away. To start with, for Hines, my gosh, since the 70s, every designer in the country was wanting to work for Hines, model maker, display company, photographer, printer, everybody wanted to work for Hines. And so did I. At that time, Lowell Williams was king, Jerry Herring was king, and they were doing unbelievable things. And it really put Houston on the map at that early time. And in those days, it was Pat Harris, who was marketing director, and then after that it was Ann Kiefer, and now in really wonderful, great hands with George Lancaster. And I have to mention Kim Jagger. I've known Kim since I walked in the door nervous when I was working for J. Laux and trying to get some business, and it's really makes me feel great that Kim's here tonight. Far be it from me to talk about how wonderful Hines has been for the city, but I can share a couple of things. The standard that Hines has stood up to as far as for their buildings and in their use of graphic design is just is amazing. Their feeling about do everything the very best it can be, and it will matter. The old saying of you only do good work for great clients totally works with these guys. A lot of designers in the room have had the opportunity to work with Hines. Lana and Mark Gear and Mark Judson and Pentagram and a lot of really wonderful design firms across the country. But Hines gave Houston a spotlight early on, and still today, with the sense of really caring about what matters. And to that, it's really amazing that we're lucky that Hines happens to call Houston home. They're the opposite of the guys that do the TV shows like Donald Trump, who puts his name all over his buildings. Hines takes the quiet feeling of those who matter care. I mean, those who matter really know, and those who don't, doesn't matter. And so for that, Hines has changed the landscape of most of the cities in the world, definitely the United States. You could point to any of the skylines in the United States and say, that's a Hines building, that's a Hines building, that's a Hines building. And for the use of design, it is just a privilege that they happen to be here in Houston, and it's very lucky for us designers that they happen to be here in Houston and to use some of us, because it's really put us on the map from a design point of view. And then lastly, it's been very fortunate for me since it's really showing my age. Since '78, that I've been working with Gerald Hines in the marketing departments at Hines, and it reminds me of a story. I mean, a great memory that Gerald Hines was honored in Washington D.C. at the Building Museum, and George was nice enough to invite Heidi and I, and we show up, and all the great living architects of the world were there, and all those that have passed on, I'm sure, were there too. And it was an amazing evening in Washington. And I remember about halfway through the presentation, I'm like, get my shirt.
I'm right with you.
Heidi turns to me and said, I'm so proud of you. And I said, for what? And she said, just be working for such a great company. And so, great honor to me, Cheryl Hines.
Boy, I should just say nothing because we love a good third-party endorsement, and I don't know how I could improve upon what people have said, but thanks, Chris, and thanks to the AIGA. I was going to come home early for the original gala. I was on a business trip in Milan, and I was going to come home a day early for the Saturday night gala, and obviously Ike had other plans, so we're here tonight. But I have a story from Milan that I think y'all will like a lot. We have a really big project, one of the pictures on the screen. We have probably the largest mixed-use development going on in Europe right now in Milan called Porta Nuova. And, you know, Milan, of course, is arguably probably the design capital of the world, just the most chic people, best taste. And our Hines Italy office is working with a few of the most sophisticated designers and ad firms anywhere. But when it came time to get the right logo for this project, they just absolutely could not get there. A year of work, and they still couldn't get an identity for this new neighborhood that we're creating in Milan. And so we went to Chris Hill and said, Chris, the Italians cannot get this right. Can you do it? And of course, in short order, Chris Hill did the logo for Porta Nuova, which is now the identity for the whole project. And what's more remarkable is that the Milanese people have embraced it and accepted it, which is unusual, and love this American logo and are using it on T-shirts and, you know, we all over the barricades. It was so great to visit because it's really coming to life and people are really understanding the brand because of your logo. So thank you for that. Well, hold on. We're going to talk about him. So Jerry and Jeff Hines would have loved to have been here tonight. They're both traveling on business, and they send their regards and their thanks, of course. Gerald D. Hines set the tone for the firm when he hung his shingle out in 1957. And he based his entire business model that still stands today in 16 countries on the premise that better design makes better investments. He was the original pace setter and tastemaker for the company. And on the graphics end, as Chris told you, he was assisted in the 70s and 80s by the incomparable Pat Harris, and then Ann Kiefer in the 90s, and more recently by me. And Hines has always been supportive of the contribution that communications professionals make to our product. It's hard to estimate the impact that an image, which is usually conceived well in advance of the reality, ultimately contributes to the lasting value. But I think it's significant. So tonight we send a big thanks to the many firms with whom we have worked and the people we have depended upon, like Phil Schmidt. Where are you, Phil? I know you're here tonight. And of course, probably Mark Judson, Jerry Herring, Chris Hill, Lowell Williams, Mark Gear, our own August Kovach, and many others inside and outside of Texas. So thank you. You graphic designers and communication professionals in this room may not be as well known or as well paid as a Philip Johnson or a Frank Gehry or a Jean Nouvel, but rest assured that we value your contribution and treasure your support. Thank you so much for this award.